A lot of people say they like the idea of an electric car, but the price of electric cars has got a bit silly. And maybe the size of electric cars have got a bit silly. Well, Honda thinks it has the answer. They did the Honda E a few years ago, but this is not the E. This is the replacement for the E, the Super N. And in this episode, I'm going to have a first look at this finished car, which goes on sale in the UK this summer for less than 20,000 quid. It's a bit cool. I'm Jonny Smith, you're watching The Late Break Show. So let's backtrack a little bit. The Honda E, which I reviewed as my very first video on The Late Break Show 6 years ago, is still one of the highest viewed videos I've ever done. And it's still one of the most exciting new cars I've driven in the last decade or so. But the Honda E had a problem. Well, maybe two problems. First problem was it went on sale at nearly £40,000, which was an enormous amount for a small car with a very small boot. But it also had a small range, and those two factors are what really stopped it from being a commercial success. However, I still think it's a fantastic car and a great car secondhand. Honda knows this. So Honda decided to bring out the Super N. The Super N is not really related to the Honda E in terms of everything underneath, because this is based upon a Kei car, Kei, which is a class of car in Japan, which you probably know about if you watch The Late Break Show. This is an electric adaptation of a piston car that they've been selling in Japan for many years. In fact, I think it is the #1 best-selling Kei car for many years, which means it's a cheaper car to make, which means it's a cheaper car for us to buy. So let's do an overview and let's talk dimensions and things like that. So as I said, this is based upon the Honda N, the Kei car in Japan. I thought this was going to be the first Kei car sold officially in the UK, not as a grey import. But this is actually not a Kei car now, because the Super N has these. It has boxy little arches, and because of that little extra track there and the extra body skirts and stuff, it's actually a little bit bigger than a Kei car. I say a little bit bigger. This car is 3.4 meters long, 1.48 meters wide, and it's 2.5 meter wheelbase. And guess how much it weighs? Less than 1.1 tons. So this is a shade over a ton in weight, which is very, very light for a car. And it's got a more powerful engine. And I'm pointing here because the Honda E had a motor and a rear-wheel drive powertrain and chassis. This doesn't have that. This is front-wheel drive and front-motored. It has the batteries still somewhere down here. And Honda haven't said whether it shares the same battery chemistry as the Honda E, but we do know it's near as damn it the same size. It's 29.6 kilowatt hours. It's a small battery, which means it doesn't go really, really far. It'll do up to 199 miles city range, and in real world terms, that is apparently 128, so nearly 130 miles of combined driving range. But remember the price. And also, what's it inspired by? Let me show you. City, because this car is the City Turbo 2, the specific model of which we never got in the UK. And it was promoted by a British band in Japan called Madness. And they just said City and walked around a lot like this, like they'd done something terrible in their trousers. City! Honda, 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 Honda. City! Honda, 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 Honda. It will catch your eye. But what's really cool about this car from the early 80s was it was a turbo intercooled version of a slim little city car, extra boxy arches. They even had a racing series with these, which was total carnage. But you can see the inspiration from this as you look around it and what's gone into the Honda Super N. I absolutely love these. And remember, this was the car that had the folding Honda Motor Compo motorbike that was an optional extra to be sold and put in the back of one of these. I've owned a Moto Compo motorbike, but I've never owned one of these. These are brilliant, and I know they're only going up in value. Even the shapes of the seats have been mimicked in the Honda Super N as well. And the boost function, this had some kind of boost function in a primitive form. And that's what the Super N's got. And if you look at the design language of it, there are bits, especially at the front here, there are bits of design language which they've put into that. But as I said before, that's not a retro. They've not created a retro. They've just taken one of the coolest designs they've ever done, I think, and just kind of used and plucked bits and bobs out. But this was a really good, practical city car with a little bit of attitude. Oh, you hardly ever see these in the UK for the reasons I've mentioned before. But as a kid of the 80s, I knew about these before ever seeing a real one because of Tamiya. Because Tamiya made a radio-controlled one called Willys Wheeler. You can type that into Google and you're perfectly safe. Willys Wheeler was a thing. It's not until you actually put them together like this that you realise the dimensions are really similar. Well, certainly the length is. But remember, this was nicknamed the Bulldog because it's quite stocky looking. And that's the idea with this. Because in Japan, you can buy an electric N1 which hasn't got the stocky panels, which is still, you know, a Kei car in dimensions. But for the UK market, this is the only one, which has got a bit of that. As you can see, the arches going on in there. It's brilliant. Isn't it? It's great. Man, I should have bought one of these a couple of years ago. I've nearly bought 2 of them. I've owned a Moto Compo, but not one of them. But look at the styling of it. Quite slab-backed, makes the most of the space that it's got, similar to the Honda N. And what I like about the lights, the shape of the light clusters is really similar to the Super N. There's even a little N, if you look carefully, within the light cluster of the new car. I don't get bored of looking at this. You can buy the new one in white, apparently, which is very Honda. This was the era of writing lots of things in decals on the car, especially if it involved turbos or injection or intercooler. I love it. And you see that little vent on the side panel there? Again, there's a bit of that going on in the Super N. Look at the shape of the seats, and now look at the shape of the Super N seats. Digital dashboard and a turbo boost bit there, yeah. So cool. So cool. Where you put your cassette tapes? So here at the front, you've seen the City Turbo 2, which I love. And there is a resemblance between this and that, although this is not a retro car, so don't think that it is. It's not retro, it's taken inspirations from that 40-something-year-old boxy little hot hatch. Namely here, we've got this amazing kind of recycled material front fascia panel. Of course, it doesn't need a radiator as such, although there is a grille down here, with an inlet down there, but that charging little hole here is off-center, which mimics the Honda City Turbo asymmetric front grille, which I think is really neat. You'll be able to charge up to 50 kilowatts, which is really quite slow by today's standards, but bear in mind the battery pack is only 30 kilowatt hours. It's not a very big battery pack, so that should be just fine. And it will charge CCS rapid as well. And this is fairly basic. Remember, the Honda E had quite a statement of a charging situation over here, which I always thought was like a huge amount of style over substance, really. But I like this material. This is nice. And these headlights flattened on the top, almost a little bit of a slightly angry look, like a bad boy bonnet from the 90s. This does not share the underpinnings with the Honda E. In fact, it's remarkably different, and that's for cost-saving purposes. The Honda E had a bespoke chassis, independent rear suspension, and all sorts of stuff. And Honda said, even selling it for what they tried to sell it for, it still didn't make any money. Unbelievable. And that's why this is based on a Kei car, because the costs, the R&D costs of this, have largely been swallowed up by being a piston car. But of course, the great thing about using a Kei car as a base is the fact that a Kei car makes the most of the real estate by being quite vertical-sided and a higher roofline. And you really benefit from all that stuff when you open both the boot and when you sit in the car, because the Japanese love that idea of, although you haven't got much foot space, as in footprint on the road. You've got loads of cabin space and it feels like a little private lounge. That's the thinking behind the Kei Car. Forgot to say about the wheels and tyres on the Super N. These are, they don't look it, these are 15-inch wheels. So this is 185 55/15s, and the Yokohama Advan tyres as well, and a 4-spoke. Would you call that a 4-spoke? I would call that a 4-spoke, which I really like the design of. And interestingly, because the car's, I guess, so light, it's got drum brakes at the rear as well. Cool thing though. And come around to the back of the Super N, and you've got the interesting new Honda font across the back there, which I think, if you watched my video on the Prelude, which is the last recently launched Honda I went on, again, an interesting car, which is a bit of a grower. You don't quite understand it all or appreciate it all initially until you look into it or drive it a bit. This is quite reminiscent of the VW Up, I think, the kind of blacked out tailgate with this fascia panel. And then you've got almost like a race car style diffuser and brake light, or it could be a fog light, I don't know. But the other thing that really shocked me with the little colour, and this reminds me of like the Daihatsu it's that Kei Car import thing with a turbo that's four-wheel drive. I'll put a picture of it on screen. I can never remember. Avanzato. Is it Avanzato? TXXR. It's just got a really complicated name, but it's a cool car. It reminds me of that, or a Daihatsu Domino. But if we open the boot, look, the boot goes down way further than I was expecting. It takes half the bumper with it, and therefore it has a really low, flat entry point into the boot. And the boot is an impressive size, with the seats that go down like this. You can just chuck them down. And that little filler panel completely flat there, and I think that's over 1,000 litres. And then under here, there's a little bit of a cubby space here, presumably for charging cables and stuff like that. And that there is not a motor or anything, or a fuel tank. That is a Bose Super subwoofer, because the audio system in this that comes as standard is supposed to be kick-ass. If you've ever wondered whether your car has hidden features that the manufacturers never told you about, today I'm going to show you how you could unlock them. I've got this little tool here. This is called the OBD11, and what this allows me to do is to scan, diagnose, customize and even unlock certain features for this car using nothing but an app and your phone. This plugs into your OBD port, your onboard diagnostic port, and that is in various different places depending on what car you've got. Mine is down here. And once connected and linked to your phone with the OBD11 app downloaded, it will give you access to dealership levels of diagnostics. For those using OBD11 version 3, you can even unlock Mercedes-Benz vehicles as well. Okay, I'm going to fire up my sister-in-law's A1 diesel. There we go, and I'm going to connect. So as it's reading the Audi's brain here, what I would say is this third generation version is so much quicker than the others, it's really noticeable. And I can leave that little dongle plugged in and it goes into smart sleep mode when you're not using it, and that means it doesn't drain the car's battery like other versions will do. So it has scanned the car. Okay, it says it's got 2 faults. It has found 2 faults. And those 2 faults, sorry to say sister-in-law, are the driver thorax airbag igniter. The resistance is too high, so that's this chair here. And then on the multimedia system, the left rear mid-bass speaker has an open circuit, so whether or not there's a wiring fault or something like that. Interesting. Now obviously you can clear engine codes and stuff like that, but what I wanted to show you is if I go into vehicle here and I can press live data, what this does is, because the engine's running, it will give me engine speed there. You can see what speed it's idling at. It gives you the temperature of the engine. It gives you all of the information that you would want to have to check on that sort of thing. But next, what we can do is unlock some features which we ordinarily didn't have. Let's have a look. If I go to apps here, and I have a little scroll down. Now, yeah, you know, you can do things like activating DRLs, or you can fold your mirrors at certain features. And there might be stuff from different territories, different markets, which you can get your car to do. Needle sweep, for example. But one thing I know my sister-in-law Anya will appreciate, hill hold assist. I can activate hill hold assist, which is, you know, where the car actually kind of pulls the handbrake up for you when you're trying to do a hill start. I can turn that on with the phone like this, and the car will just have it. There we go. That's quite impressive, isn't it? And there's loads of other little features depending on what your car is. What's really good about this is you can use it when you go and look at a car for sale, when you're on the hunt for a new vehicle. There's a car inspection mode and a mileage check. So if you're not hugely mechanically minded, you can plug this in with the consent of the person selling the car, run all these checks, and it will tell you whether or not the car has any known faults and if the mileage is to be believed. And that's really useful. Now, although the car I'm sitting in is not a hybrid, if you do have a hybrid and you're wanting to check the state, the health of the battery, this is something that you can do on the app, which is really useful, especially when you're going to look at a car and you want to know what the status of that battery is. If you're interested in using OBD11 and giving it a try, now is the best time, because there is a promotion running as we speak, as we're recording this video, where you get 20% off many of the items. But using TLBS, you can also get another 5% off, which means last time I checked, that's 25% off. Head to the description and there will be a link that you can use. So, small car on the outside, but these big car ideas inside. Really clever packaging. Come around here to the back, because obviously it's a 5-door. This door opens pretty much 90 degrees, so again, easy to get in and out of. I've left this seat down because this is something that Honda does with cars like the Jazz. It's really bloody clever and practical, but they don't talk about it enough, I don't think. The magic seat. Watch. The seat's down because we had it in kind of storage mode, van mode, but put it up, and the squab goes up with it, and it reveals basically a flat floor van-like setup. But if you don't want it, you just lift that, drop that back down, then you've got a normal seat. And it's all one-hand, mechanical, simple, easy operation. The other thing that's really good is this threshold is really low, so getting in and out of the car is dead easy. So for people who say, I want to buy a car that's higher up because it's easier to get in and out of, you don't need to. And it's got loads of headroom, because it's a high-roofed Kei car. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention at the back, which I guess is, again, inspired by the City Turbo. That roof spoiler. Look how big that roof spoiler is. It's really, really sporty. And that's the funny thing about it, isn't it? I don't think it's going to be really rapid, but it's going to be an interesting driver's car. And that's what they've done with the Prelude. Let's go inside. I want to show you what the cabin looks like at the front, and I also want to talk to you about boost mode. Yeah. Well now, where have you seen this shape of seat before? Yes, the City Turbo 2. That silhouette of the seat is what they've used as inspiration. In the same way that I guess the new Renault 5, who uses the old school Renault 5 Turbo seat architecture, the Super N gets a more sporty, bolster-edged, multiple textile seat. This is lovely. This is Alcantara, I think, with this kind of other material. It looks great. And these are also adjustable too. We'll sit in it in a sec. Before we do, I wanted to show you the dash. So as soon as you open the door, you can see that the door panels are quite basic. And in fact, the plastics down here are quite basic. The quality doesn't feel up there with the Honda E, but remember the Honda E was pretty much a loss-leading car, and the price point was way, way, way higher than this, almost double in actual fact. This has the little selector here that's the same on things like the Civic now, and I'm pretty sure it was the same on the Honda E with your drive mode, flip buttons, and it is kind of a flat floor car. You've got this extra bit down here, which, like the Kias and the Hyundais of the world, you feel like you're kind of in a nice open environment, which gives the feeling of extra space. I like it. I like it a lot. You've got a neon line down there, and then if I sit in it, I'm going to set it up for myself. You can get the seat quite low, actually, lower than I thought for a high-roofed Kei car, and they do feel really spacious indeed. So Honda likes knobs, and we like knobs too, because it uses old school knobs which feel good, they're easy to access. There's not this gigantic touchscreen. Recessed in the middle part of the dash here is all of the HVAC system, so air conditioning, the blowers, the fans, the heat, and your heated seats, which come as standard. In fact, Heated steering wheel comes as standard as well because I saw the button down here earlier. And then you got like a little shelf thing. And like I said before, the quality of the plastics and the things doesn't feel quite as premium as the Honda E, but the Honda E was advertised at nearly double the money of this. The screen, it's a good size screen. We are shrinking our screens, I feel like. People are finally seeing sense. We don't need enormous, strange screens tacked onto the dashboard. But the good thing about this one, it has a real volume control and it has a real home button, a knurled button there, and this has Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, and all the other things. I like this. I like this compromise of size of tiles and windows, size of the screen on the dashboard, and it's just very, very clear. Steering wheel, 2-spoke, like the Honda E, which I quite liked, but there's paddles. Why are they paddles? There's paddles for several reasons. One, this car has multiple steps of regen braking, so you can adjust the regen braking. But crucially, there's a little button here, and it's actually blue. If you turn your head, it's not black, it's blue, and it says boost. And that's because this car can boost its power with that button. The paddles also do something like simulated gear shifts. We had this in the Prelude where it effectively has a CVT gearbox, but they've stepped it to sound and feel like a real pedal shift gearbox. And whilst this doesn't have a real gearbox because it's an electric car, it jolts and makes you feel like you're engaging more with the car. And we are seeing more of this with electric cars. Hyundai especially have really dialed into it with the N series of the Ioniq 5. And I like that. I like that about it. I think this is going to be not quick, but engaging. There's a lot to be said for a car which doesn't have to be quick, but it has to feel sprightly. And I think that's what we're going to get with the Super N. And there, look, Bose, more little pointers to a good audio system. I like it. It's great. It's really great in here. The only option on the Super N when it comes to the UK, apparently, is whether you have it as a two-tone with a black roof or whether you don't. Everything else is as standard. Now, while the Honda E had like a 3-pin plug and all kinds of interesting plugs and whatnot, and an aquarium function, which I did like, this has 2 USB-Cs up here, and then down here, old school cigarette lighter style socket, and a center console. That is quite basic, it's just a tray, but I'm sure you'll be able to get something rubberized to go on there. So there's one cup holder there. There looks like a fairly generous indentation in each door for a bottle of water. And then there's another little cup holder up on the driver's side here, a bit like what a lot of modern vans have. And that's where you turn it on. There's a power button right here on the right. So you've got normal driving modes, which you see here: sport, normal, city, economy. But press boost and suddenly these neons here go purple, like the special purple paint, which is a real option on the car. And boost puts way more power into the car, 47 kilowatts normal, up to 70 kilowatts of power. So you've got harder acceleration, more torque, and then you have that engine sound, a synthesized engine sound, which presumably is where the Bose audio system comes into play. And if we've got an example of that, we will put it on the video now. And then you've got these stepped gear shifts. So the whole idea is if you just want to cruise around in an EV behaving normally, you can. Or if you want to be a little pint-sized hooligan in it, I guess you can. And that's really cool. I like that. And some of that stuff's been much better received than I was expecting in other car manufacturers who have tried it. It's exciting, isn't it? It's exciting, and under 20 grand. And it makes you think, what's this competing against? Well, whereas the E really couldn't compete with anything in terms of price for what you got, this car is going to be competing almost exactly in price terms against the Renault Twingo, which comes out around the same time. And then you've got things like the Hyundai Insta, which is a bigger car than this. Renault, the 5 is bigger. The Twingo is more, Twingo is more of a competitor than this. Then you've got Leap Motor, Fiat 500 electric, Panda's a little bit bigger. There's lots and lots of this kind of car about. Although we've seen a lack of cars in this segment recently because it's harder to make a car of this size competitively priced and interesting. And I think a lot of people have just stopped buying small cars because they presume that small on the outside must mean small on the inside, and that's simply not true. I think for new cars these days on this channel, I pick and choose what I show you and what I make a video about because so few are really interesting. This is interesting. It's also, I think, really relevant. I feel like we should celebrate small cars again, small, interestingly packaged cars and small, interestingly packaged cars that are priced to sell. And that's what the Honda Super N is. It's going to be interesting this summer to see who ends up ordering one. These go on sale in July, and I think the order books open in June. Are you going for the purple? Are you not? Let me know what you think about this car in the comments. And remember, the Honda E remains a fantastic second-hand car right now. If you haven't already subscribed to The Late Break Show, I would love you to subscribe, and I'd also really welcome your comments on what you think about the Honda Super N. As you can probably tell, I'm a fan.